Welcome to our next video here by Howard Piano Industries. Today we're going to be showing you how to replace a broken piano hammer shank. As we can see here, we've got a broken hammer shank from a grand piano. This is the other end, so we've got the flange. This here is the flange. There's the knuckle, and these two pieces should be going together, but as you can see, they're broken. So what we're going to do, we could try to fix it, which is one option, but in this repair today we're going to show you actually how to replace the shank and the flange with a new replacement. So this hammer and shank was off of a Mason Hamlin grand piano, so I know that it's Wessel, Nickel, and Gross are the brands. Now the way that you can tell which, because there are many different types of shanks and flanges, or several different types, and the main thing is you want to get the measurement correct so that you get the correct part. Now the way to know which piece that you need is you're going to make two measurements. You're going to take the measurement from the middle of the core of the knuckle. Okay, so this right here is the core. This right here, this piece right here is the knuckle, and you can see there's a wood core in there. So if you measure from the middle of that core to the middle of the center pin, okay, so this right here is the center pin at the end of my ruler there, okay, and we usually measure in millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to measure from the middle of that center pin to the middle of the wood core of the knuckle. Okay, and I can see that's 12 millimeters. Okay, the next measurement is we're going to take from the middle of the center pin to the middle of where this this hole for the flange screw would go. Okay, so in line from there to about the middle of there. Okay, and as I measure this, I can see that that's 25 millimeters, and I measured it beforehand, so but you can take real careful measurements. So 12 millimeters here, 25 millimeters there, and that will vary based on the piano that you've got and the model and make and so forth. You've got some that are Yamaha, some that are Steinway, and sometimes the flanges are a different shape, so you want to make sure you get the one that that matches your piano. Now we do have adjustable flanges. These they gotta have the slot for the screw is elongated so that you can adjust that forward and back based on your particular piano. Of course, obviously the distance from the center pin to the knuckle won't vary, but you can adjust that flange screw so that if we don't have one that matches, this one probably will work for you. Okay, now on to the repair. We've got here our broken hammer shank. I'm going to take my grand hammer shank remover. There we go. All right, and what you do is you set it in there just like that, so that the part that's pushing out the old hammer shank is pushing from the top or the back of the hammer. Okay, so the shank is here, and here's our screw here. So we're going to line that up, and we're going to take because what we're going to do is going to try to preserve this hammer so that we can put the new shank onto the old hammer. Okay, you could replace the hammer, but sometimes that's hard to find a replacement for the old hammer. So we're going to preserve that and just replace the shank and the flange. And then you twist that, pushing, and what that does is that's pushing the old shank out of the hammer. Okay, and you just go until the shank falls out. Okay, and so there we then have the old hammer. Okay, and you can see there's a hole in it where the shank was. So here we've got some old glue. Okay, it was pretty brittle, so it just kind of fell out. That came off pretty easy. Sometimes if it doesn't come off easy, you can take a sharp knife and scrape at it to remove any of the old glue, and even go inside the hole and remove any brittle old glue that may be remaining. Okay, and this one's pretty dry. The old glue came off pretty good. So here I've already measured and gotten the correct Wessel, Nickel, and Gross shank and flange. It's got the same dimensions as the old one, from the knuckle core to the center pin, and center pin to the flange screw hole. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to put the new hammer on. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dry fit this to see how tight it is. Okay, and that's pretty tight. Okay, so then I'm going to take my hammer shank reducer right here, and we're going to just reduce the size of that shank a little bit. You can, if you don't have this tool and need to get by, you can use a knife or sandpaper. There's a different number of different things, but either way, we want to get that shank down. It'll go in the hole, but it's pretty tight, and you want to have room for the glue to be able to get around the shank in the hole, so that there's room for that glue. I'm going to test this again. It's a little bit looser, but still a little bit tight. Okay, and if I turn it, what that does is that squeezes the blades together a little bit further, so it'll cut more wood off of the shank. Okay, that's pretty good. Now what I did was I took the hammer that was next to it, and I want to use this to make an alignment. Make sure, because if you've got room, actually I'm going to bring this down just a little more, because it's still pretty tight. Okay, so yeah, usually if you've got a little bit of wiggle room, this hammer will wobble back and forth a little bit. It's still fairly tight, but there's a little bit of wiggle in there. So the other thing is you want to make sure that this side to side is lined up with your hammer and I'm sorry, with your shank and your flange. Okay, and sometimes you can do this in the piano. Okay, if you put the new shank and flange into the piano, that way you can sometimes line it up and adjust it to be aligned with the hammers that are on either side of this. Okay, but we're doing it outside of the piano for now. And so then once you've got that the shank to the right size, then we're going to take some glue. If you've got hot hide glue, that works really good. But if you're just doing one hammer shank replacement, you probably don't want to heat up your glue pot and do that. So I'm using cold liquid hot wood glue. You can use this is hide wood glue, but you can use other kinds of wood glue also. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put some glue. Oh, better do it over the paper towel, because otherwise I make a mess. And get a nice glop in there. I didn't get a big enough glop, so I'm going to get a little bit more. I don't have a real big brush here. And sometimes if you've got something you can dip your brush in, that works real good too. So get that in there so that you've got glue covering the hole. And then we're just going to slide the hammer onto the shank. Have your paper towel handy in case it drips a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to use the old hammer shank for, or the one that was next to it that's not broken, is for aligning it for how far I need to put it onto the shank, because the shank length is going to be a little bit too long. Okay, this is too long. Okay, so we're going to have to sand that down once we're done. Okay, but once I know that I've got it side to side, okay, I'm going to get kind of a basic idea of length. You want to line up the knuckles, and then you want to make sure that they're at the same distance as the one next to it, and that's where it's helpful to have it in the piano, because then you can see on both sides of it that it lines up. Okay, but here we've got and sometimes you got to fiddle with it quite a bit before you get it to just the right spot, because once the glue dries, it's a little bit harder to line it up later on. So basically you want to get that lined up with the hammer next to it, and make sure that that they're at the same spot. Okay, because if your strike points are in different places, you're not going to get the best tone. So there we've got the hammer shank hung on the new, or the hammer hung on the new shank. And what we'll do is, once this glue dries, I'm going to just take and cut off most of that excess shank piece at the end. I'll just use a hammer shank cutter, or what I've also done is I've taken a Dremel tool and I've just sanded that down, so, with a sanding band. And I'll sand that down so that it's smooth and level with the back side of the hammer, so it's not protruding at all off of the back of the hammer. Okay, and so once you've done that, you install that in the piano, and there you've got a new shank and flange for your hammer. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us, but otherwise our website is howardpianoindustries.com.